Hello, this is Dr. Grande. Today's question is, can I analyze the case of Alissa Turney? Just a reminder, I'm not diagnosing anybody in this video, only speculating about what could be happening in a situation like this. If you enjoyed this video, please like it, subscribe to my channel, and consider supporting me on Patreon. I'll put the link to Patreon in the description for this video. First, I'll look at the background of this case, move to the timeline of the disappearance, then offer my analysis. Alissa Turney was born on April 3, 1984, in Maricopa County, Arizona. She lived with her father, Stephen Strom, and her mother, Barbara Lee Farner. Alissa had an older brother named John. When Alissa was 3 years old, her mother, Barbara, met a man named Michael Roy Turney. He was 10 years older than Barbara. Michael had 3 sons from a previous marriage. At some point, Michael worked as a police officer. Barbara divorced her husband, Stephen, and married Michael. The couple had a daughter together named Sarah. They lived in the Phoenix, Arizona area. On February 28, 1993, Barbara died of cancer at the age of 34. At this time, Alissa was 8 years old, and her half-sister, Sarah, was 4 years old. Michael raised the 2 girls on his own. He was very strict with Alissa in particular. By 2001, the family lived in a house on North 34th Street in Phoenix, Arizona. Alissa was a junior at Paradise Valley High School, and she had a part-time job at a fast food restaurant called Jack in the Box. She struggled academically and was in special education classes. Now moving to the timeline of the disappearance. On May 17, 2001, Michael Turney reported to the police that Alissa was missing. He said that he dropped her off to high school in the morning. It was the last day of her junior year. Michael picked her up at around lunchtime, and they had lunch together. They had an argument because Alissa wanted more freedom. She was ready to leave home for good and be on her own. After the argument, Alissa went to her room. Michael ran errands and picked up Sarah. When Michael and Sarah returned to the family house, Sarah found a note which appeared to be left by Alissa. The note read, quote, "Dad and Sarah, when you dropped me off at school today, I decided that I really am going to California. Sarah, you said you did not want me around. Look, you got it. I'm gone. That's why I saved my money. Dad, I took $300 from you, Alissa." Unquote. Here's what the police found during their investigation. They confirmed that Michael took Alissa to school and picked her up. Alissa told her boyfriend that her stepfather was picking her up early. She was seen getting into Michael's vehicle. The next day, Alissa was scheduled to work at Jack in the Box, but she did not show up. Alissa left her cell phone behind, and she had about $1,800 saved up that she did not take with her. The police could not find any sign of Alissa. They assumed that she had run away. No foul play was suspected. On May 24, 2001, 1 week after Alissa's disappearance, Michael received a phone call in the early morning hours. He heard Alissa say something like, "Leave me alone," before she disconnected the phone. The call only lasted for 29 seconds. Michael called the police and asked for assistance. He wanted to know where the call originated. The police were not willing to assist in any manner. Michael filed a lawsuit against the phone company to get information about the call and was successful. The phone call came from a payphone off Interstate 215 in Riverside, California. It was right next to a Jack in the Box fast food restaurant, the same company that Alissa worked for in Arizona. The payphone was 75 miles east of where Alissa's aunt lived in Torrance, California. This is significant because Alissa had talked to her aunt about moving to California and living with her. Michael traveled to Riverside, California. He spoke to people, searched for Alissa, and handed out flyers. He did not have any success in finding his stepdaughter. The police didn't care about this case, and nothing happened with it for a few years. In 2006, an inmate named Thomas Albert Heimer, who was serving life in prison in Florida for murder, claimed that he murdered Alissa. Investigators thought this was possible, After all, Thomas was a killer, and he was not in prison at the time Alissa disappeared. Later, Thomas said that he might have been confused and perhaps did not kill Alissa. Investigators came to believe that Thomas was not the culprit. They decided it was time to conduct a proper investigation into Alissa's disappearance. They interviewed family and friends. Alissa had made a lot of statements to various people about her stepfather, Michael. Here are a few examples of what she allegedly said. She was afraid of her stepfather, Michael. He was demanding and controlling. He once drove her to a desert area and attempted to fool around with her. Sometimes she would wake up and find him attempting to strangle or suffocate her, and Alissa believed that Michael was going to kill her. The police learned that Michael had several video cameras outside and inside of his house. One of them was located in a vent. Michael also recorded phone calls. He appeared to be spying on his stepdaughter, Alissa. The police asked Michael for the surveillance video for the day Alissa went missing and for a recording of the phone call that Alissa allegedly made from California a week later. Michael said that he did not have any of these recordings, which the police found to be suspicious. Michael did supply other videos to the police. One of them featured Alissa having romantic contact with a boy who was not her boyfriend. It appears as though Michael was trying to demonstrate that his stepdaughter had been out of control. He was trying to show the police why he needed to be strict. Michael wasn't particularly cooperative with the police after they decided to conduct a real investigation, despite having complained about it before when they didn't take the case seriously. Investigators came to believe that Michael was involved in Alissa's disappearance. They obtained a search warrant for his house. On December 11, 2008, the police moved into position to execute the warrant. They arranged for Sarah to go to a meeting for her safety. They did not want her to be in the house when the raid occurred. The police moved into position when Michael was alone in his house. When Michael walked to his mailbox, the police approached him. They found that he was carrying 2 semi-automatic pistols, 7 magazines, and an audio recording device. It sounds like he was worried about someone going postal on his trip to the mailbox. The police searched Michael's residence and found that it was very messy. They discovered several items of interest, for example, a large collection of firearms, explosive devices including pipe bombs, a 71-page manifesto, and a video of the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers building in Phoenix, Arizona. Michael had planned to conduct an attack on this location. He wanted to kill at least a dozen union members. This was shocking news that made sparks fly. He believed that the union hired 2 assassins to murder Alissa. It's not clear if the assassins were union assassins. I imagine they probably were not because the union members didn't want to pay into the assassin pension plan. Michael had planned on conducting his electrifying performance on December 15, just 4 days after the search warrant was executed. As it turns out, Michael's murder plan blew up in his face. He was arrested for several charges, including having unregistered explosive devices. The search of Michael's house yielded no physical evidence connecting him to Alissa's disappearance. As far as Michael's allegations against the electrical workers, the police found no connection between the union and Alissa. Michael requested an attorney and did not make any statements to the police. This was a smart move, but in 2009, Michael decided to give an interview to the media, which was not a smart move. He claimed he didn't remember writing about planning to kill union members, and there were no bombs in his house, rather just fireworks. Michael wanted to make some noise and attract attention to Alissa's case. Ultimately, Michael Turney pleaded guilty to possession of unregistered destructive devices. He was sentenced to 10 years in prison and released in August of 2017. The police still believed that Michael murdered his stepdaughter Alissa. Despite having no new evidence, they arrested him in August of 2020. He was charged with second-degree murder. Michael's trial started on July 6, 2023. After the state presented its case, Michael's defense attorneys made a motion arguing that he should be acquitted because there was not enough evidence of his guilt. The judge agreed. Michael was acquitted of second-degree murder. Double jeopardy applies in this case. Michael cannot be tried again for the same crime. At the time making this video, Alissa Turney is still missing. She is presumed dead. Now moving to my analysis. Michael Turney was acquitted of murder, but of course the state still contends that he was responsible for Alissa's death. This brings me to the question, did Michael kill his stepdaughter? Let's take a look at the evidence both for and against the idea that Michael was guilty, starting with the inculpatory factors. Alissa allegedly told people that her stepfather had mistreated her. This included attempting to strangle and suffocate her. She appeared to be afraid of him and wanted to move away. Alissa and Michael had a contentious relationship characterized by frequent arguments. Michael was strict, demanding, and controlling. He made Alissa sign a contract about her behavior. Among other things, it specified that Alissa was not allowed to have sex before the age of 18. She was not permitted to have any sexual contact with a male friend in the house out of respect for Michael. Alissa was also forced to sign a statement indicating that Michael never mistreated her in a physical or sexual manner. This makes it seem like Michael was expecting to be accused of something and wanted to have a defense. Michael was the last person to see Alissa alive and took her out of school early on the day she disappeared. Alissa left behind her cell phone and $1,800. This seems inconsistent with a voluntary departure. Michael had cameras in his house and recorded phone calls. He conveniently did not have the recordings relevant to Alissa's disappearance. Michael stockpiled bombs in his house and documented plans to kill people. This demonstrates that he was capable of planning a murder. Michael's daughter Sarah initially stood by her father, but later changed her mind. One time she recorded him without his knowledge. He invited Sarah to be present on his deathbed, where he would provide all the answers she wanted to hear. This makes it seem as though Michael had something explosive to share. Moving to the exculpatory factors, Alissa has never been found. She could still be alive. No physical evidence of a crime was ever recovered. No blood, no DNA, no hair, nothing at all. Based on when Alissa was last seen and when she was reported missing, Michael did not have a lot of time to kill her and get rid of her body. Alissa had talked to a few people about going to California. For example, she mentioned this to her aunt, who lived there, and to her boyfriend. In an essay she wrote for a driver's education class, Alissa even calculated how long it would take to drive to California. On the day she disappeared, a note was found indicating that Alissa was going to California. It was written in her handwriting. For 7 years, the police did not conduct any meaningful investigation. It was Michael who put in the work to find his stepdaughter. He drove around town, handed out flyers, contacted agencies, and tried to raise awareness about her disappearance. Michael did everything the police wouldn't do. When the police would not investigate the mysterious phone call that Michael received a week after the disappearance, he filed a lawsuit to get information about the call. He even traveled to where the call originated, which was in California, only 75 miles from the residence of Alissa's aunt. Even though Michael's efforts to control Alissa are bizarre, there is no doubt that she was a disruptive and rambunctious teenager. Perhaps Michael felt overwhelmed trying to keep her safe. Maybe Michael had obsessive and paranoid tendencies that actually drove Alissa away, like he was the cause of her disappearance, but not the cause of her death. The fact that Michael possessed bombs and planned to murder people definitely makes him look guilty, but his reasons for planning the attack were related to his belief that the Electrical Workers Union was responsible for his stepdaughter's murder. One could argue that this actually makes him look innocent, like he was willing to do anything to avenge her death. He was upset that she had been killed. When considering all the evidence, do I believe that Michael was guilty? I do not believe he was guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. The judge made the right decision in this case. As far as being guilty in reality, like do I believe that Michael probably did it, if I had to guess, I would say that Michael probably was involved. But there is no way to know for certain. This case is characterized by bizarre behavior that can be interpreted multiple ways. It glides on a razor's edge between innocence and guilt. If the police properly investigated this case from the beginning, perhaps it would have been solved. Now moving to my final thoughts. It appears as though Michael may have been a bit paranoid and obsessed. I think these traits could be to blame for Alissa's disappearance, whether Michael was guilty or innocent. If Michael was guilty, the paranoia and obsessiveness could be responsible in the sense that these traits drove him to maintain complete control. Maybe he realized that he couldn't and therefore resorted to homicide. If he was not guilty, the paranoia and obsessiveness could have driven his stepdaughter away to her eventual demise. Michael made her life so miserable, she felt compelled to escape at any cost. Those are my thoughts in the case of Alissa Turney. Please put any opinions and thoughts in the comment section. They always generate an interesting dialogue. As always, I hope you found my analysis of this topic to be informative. Thanks for watching.